InStitches show, and welcome to December. We made it. It's time for the 12th and final square in our 2022 Totally Tunisian calendar blanket, and we're going to finish the year kind of the way we started it, with a Tunisian simple stitch. This month we're going to learn the Tunisian extended simple stitch. It's the simple stitch with just a slight extension, making one row of the extended simple stitch double the height of a regular row of Tunisian crochet. And that means we only have to do 16 rows to finish the square instead of the usual 32. So a nice speedy finish to the year. It's a quick stitch, it's a very simple one, so let's just jump right into it. Let's grab our hooks, we'll grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up the 12th and final square in our Totally Tunisian calendar blanket together. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. In order to make our extended Tunisian simple stitch square, or the Tunisian extended simple stitch, we are going to use around 100 yards of a size 4 medium weight yarn. I'm using acrylic, but be sure to be using the same yarn you've been using all along for this project. You need around 90 yards for the square itself and an additional 10 yards for the square's border. I will be making this entire square using my sage color. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, your Tunisian or Afghan hook in size 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9 in the US, or a larger size should your tension require it, and a same sized regular crochet hook just to single crochet the border on the square once we're done. I find switching between these two for regular crochet makes the project a little easier to do. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. As usual, I highly recommend making up a little stitch sampler before you dive into the entire square project. This sampler is 7 chains by 3 rows. Working a little sampler will help get you comfortable and familiar with how the pattern feels, how it looks, and if you do have any problems, it's easier to identify them on the small scale than realizing you've made a mistake when you're partway through a large pattern. So I recommend making up a little stitch sampler before you get started. We're going to take our yarn and begin with a slip knot, and we're going to chain 39 chains, that's 39 chains to begin. Now normally we chain 38, but because the Tunisian extended simple stitch takes up double the height of a regular row of Tunisian crochet, we need 1 extra chain on the end of every row for turning, and that basically will help get our crochet work up to the right height. We've done one other stitch this year that required an extra turning chain at the end of every row, and that was the Tunisian double crochet stitch. So kind of a similar vibe. You have 39 chains now in your foundation chain row, and we're going to jump directly into the Tunisian extended simple stitch. We are going to skip the first 2 chains from the hook. So normally we only skip the first one. We're going to skip the first 2. And you're going to pick up a loop in that 3rd chain away from the hook, and then chain 1. So you should have something that looks like this. This should look like you've got 2 little stitches sitting above your foundation chain. So 2 little stitches below your 2 loops. Into the next chain, slip your hook in, pull up a loop, and chain 1. So this is the very important part of the extended simple stitch. Don't forget to chain 1 before you move on. You want to have those nice, neat little chain stitches sitting underneath your loops. Into the next loop, pick up a loop, just like you would if you were doing the regular Tunisian simple stitch to start, but we're going to chain 1 before we move on. If you get confused, just stop. Make sure you have what looks like a little chain stitch underneath each loop on your hook. And you're going to do this all the way across. So pick up a loop and chain 1. Pick up a loop and chain 1. You'll have 38 loops on your hook at the end of this row. You probably have a little squiggly worm around your Afghan hook here. You could just take a moment to unswirl that. Count them up. You should have 38 loops on your hook, and that's the end of the forward pass of our first row, and we jumped right into the pattern. So we didn't do sort of your typical little foundation row for the pattern. We just jumped right into it, and that's pick up a loop and chain one, and that gives us this really pretty little chain stitch sitting underneath each loop. Every reverse pass is a standard reverse pass. We yarn over, pull back through the first loop only, yarn over, pull back through two. Yarn over, pull back through two, yarn over, pull back through two, all the way back, and you will have one loop left on your hook at the end of the reverse pass. At the end of your reverse pass, you'll be back to one loop left on your hook, and we've got what looks like 2 rows of Tunisian crochet already finished. So it's nice to finish the year with a speedy stitch. We're only going to have to do 16 rows in total for this square, and every row finished will look the same. You're going to have a little heart-shaped chain stitch below your front vertical bar. So it almost looks like little hanging hearts all the way across. So cute. Every row is the same. We begin with a chain one. Remember, this is a double the height regular stitch, so we have to chain one to begin, but that first vertical bar is still accounted for, so that little extra chain there sort of counts as an extended Tunisian simple stitch. So chain one to begin every row, but you're still starting the actual stitch pattern in that second vertical bar. Slip your hook through that vertical bar just like you were going to do a regular Tunisian simple stitch, but chain one before you move on. Next vertical bar, pick up a loop, but chain one before you move on. And you'll still have those sweet little hearts hanging underneath each loop, and they'll be sitting on top of the vertical bars from that previous row. So this is how we extend the simple stitch. Pick up a loop, chain one, pick up a loop, and chain one. You're going to do that all the way across. You'll still have 38 loops on your hook at the end of the forward pass. Every single row is like this, and then we'll do a standard reverse pass on the way back. As you get across to the end of a row and you want to work your 38th loop or pickup, we're going to do that same little thing that we often do. We're just going to slip our hook through the 2 edge loops. Now, having said that, this is the last vertical bar. You could just use this one if you find it easier. It's all right. But I like to just sort of grab the 2 edge loops, pick up a loop, and then chain one. And that's that last picked up loop. Make sure you still have 38 loops on your hook. Every single loop should have a little stitch or a little heart sitting just underneath it, and they should all be sitting nice and in alignment on top of those vertical bars from the first row. Standard reverse pass, yarn over, pull back through the first stitch only, yarn over, pull back through 2, yarn over, pull back through 2, all the way back. Once you've finished the reverse pass of your second row, you'll have something that looks like this. It looks like we've done 4 rows already. So there's that first little bunch of chains, and then the vertical bar, and then the chains, and then the vertical bar. You can also count on the side. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 chains running up there. And remember, we have to chain an extra chain at the beginning of every row. So when you've got 4 chains, that actually means you've done 2 rows of the Tunisian extended simple stitch. So by the time you get to 32 chains running up the side of your square, you'll have done 16 rows of the Tunisian extended simple stitch. And 16 rows is what we're after. So remember, every row begins with a chain 1. That gets us up to the right height. We start every row in the second chain, or I should say the second vertical bar, pick up a loop, and chain 1. Don't forget that chain 1, very important. you're going to pick up a loop and chain 1 in every single vertical bar all the way across, remembering that the last vertical bar, you can use it on its own or use the 2 edge loops, the vertical bar and that loop at the edge of the square, just if you want to. It kind of helps make things a little neater along the side, but it doesn't really matter. As long as you've got those chains running up the edge, we'll have no trouble putting on our border. So you can work away at that. Pick up a loop, chain 1 in every single vertical bar all the way across. Standard reverse pass for every single row. Don't forget that chain 1 to begin every row. You're only working 16 rows in total. I'll see you at the end of row 16. I have completed 16 rows of the Tunisian extended simple stitch, and my square is a little shorter than it is wide. So when I go to block it, I will be concentrating on sort of pulling it lengthwise and not so much widthwise, just so that I can get it to square up to match the shapes of my other squares. But first we want to add our border. So if you are going to change colors, you want to snip your yarn, fasten off, and join your new yarn with a single crochet in that first vertical bar. If you're not changing colors, like I'm not this year, then you can just pull up on your loop, switch out to your regular crochet hook. I just find this easier. Chain 1, and single crochet into that first vertical bar. So if you're joining your yarn, join it with a single crochet in that first vertical bar. Otherwise, if you're not changing colors, chain 1, single crochet into that first vertical bar. We're going to single crochet in each vertical bar all the way across. As normal, this is the same border style that we've added to our other 11 squares. You'll have 32 single crochet across the top of your square. That's the first side of our border. Into that last vertical bar, single crochet to finish off that side, chain 1 and single crochet into the same place. This single crochet becomes the first stitch down the side of our square. You had 32 chains, or 16 rows, but 32 little stitches running up the side of your square, plus your foundation chain down here. So by the time you've gotten to the bottom, working a single crochet into the edge of each of those loops or stitches. So remember, there's like a little chain, and some of them might be small. Don't miss them. You'll have 33 single crochet running down the edge of your square. Just grab that front loop, front vertical bar, so don't miss those little tiny chains because they may have gotten a bit tight. Just take your time and work your way down the side. You'll have 33 single crochet running down the first side of your square. Your 33rd single crochet is in the foundation chain. There's your little starting tail. Chain 1 for the corner, single crochet in the same place, and now you can single crochet in each foundation chain all the way across the bottom. You'll have 38 single crochet running across the bottom of your square. And I'm going to take the opportunity to just work over top of that little short tail too. That's 38 single crochet across the bottom of your square. Chain 1 and single crochet in the same place as your last single crochet. That becomes the first one running up the second side of your square. And now you're going to single crochet into each of those little front facing edge loops. Don't miss that first one, it's a bit small. You should have 33 running up the side. Your last, or your 33rd, come here you. Your 33rd single crochet will be in the same place that you started the border row in. So now it's a little easier here. You can see that I want those front facing loops. There'll be 33 single crochet up the edge. So one for each of those 32 chains or running stitches, plus that extra one down in your foundation chain row. I'll see you up at the top. Single crochet number 33 is in the same vertical bar that you began your border row in. Chain 1 to turn the last corner and join with a slip stitch to the top of the first single crochet. You can fasten off, weave in your tail, and take a moment to block it. Remember, you're focusing more likely on the lengthwise pull, so you want to sort of stretch it lengthwise than you want to go widthwise, just because it depending on your tension might end up a little short like mine did. And that's the back. Doesn't that look cool? That's also a very pretty little stitch pattern. All right, I'm going to block my square and I'll be right back. All right, I have blocked my square. It is roughly square in shape. Pulling it lengthwise and not pulling it widthwise really helped get it up to the right sort of shape and size. And that is the 12th square. Isn't that neat? It's just got that little extra, almost like a hanging heart that sits underneath that vertical bar. I find that's a nice way to make sure I haven't missed anything and that I've always remembered to put in that little extra chain 1 every time I pick up a stitch. And I like these extended stitches. I also enjoyed the Tunisian double crochet stitch that we learned this year. Of the two, which one do you think was faster? I'd like to know. Leave us a comment down below. And with that, we're almost done. We've got to just stitch the squares together, add a little border, and the blanket is finished. Now, like we usually say at this point in the year, you can join your squares any way you want. We will be doing a little join video on them, and you can also put on any kind of border you might like if you're a little more experienced with adding borders to blankets and you don't want to wait for our border tutorial, which is coming. I know a lot of you make these blankets and give them away as gifts at the end of the year, but rest assured there's a couple more tutorials coming. But that is the end of the Tunisian squares. 12 of them. Hard to believe. Hard to believe we've done 12. I always feel like this time of the year. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed learning the Tunisian extended simple stitch along with us this week. And we'll see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.